Hey everybody, this is Dave with another sample lesson. This is part two of a series of lessons, basic blues lessons. In the first part, we talked about chord progressions and we divided the lesson up into two parts, sort of an easy part and a hard part. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about playing a solo over that blues progression, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to divide the lesson up into an easy solo and a harder solo. So we'll start first with the easy solo. In the easy solo, we're going to use what's called the A minor pentatonic scale. And I'm going to put a graphic up. So to demonstrate this scale, what we have to do is we have to position our fingers assigned to consecutive frets with the first finger assigned to the 5th fret, because this is the note A and the chord progression we're playing over is an A, so we need to play the scale in A. This is an A minor pentatonic, and we're basically going to assign 1 to the 5th fret, 2 to the 6th, 3 to the 7th, and 4 to the 8th. And if we have a note come up on those particular frets, that finger that is assigned to those frets will play it. So here goes the pentatonic scale, nice and slow, from the bottom note up to the top. And then back down. Okay, hopefully you could see that all right. The other scale that we're going to use is really just the same scale. It's called the blues scale, and it's the same scale with an additional pair of notes added. They're called blue notes. So here goes the blues scale. Back down. Okay, so along with those scales, we're going to also use some things to dress up some notes here and there. We'll employ slides. So what I just did there was, this note within the scale is on the 5th fret. I'm going to play it with 1, but to dress it up a little bit, I back up a couple of frets, play the string, and slide in, running my finger up the string, and then stopping at the fret that I want to land on, which is the 5th fret. You also may have noticed a small amount of vibrato. So this is vibrato. It's a tiny bending of the string repeatedly. So slide with vibrato, so we'll use that effect. This is the music that I made up to show the notes that I'm playing in the easy solo. So we've got notes and tabs. For any of you that are new to this, the little lines leading up to a number are indicators of a slide, because we're playing into the 5th position. A slide to the 5th fret would be done by the first finger, because that's the finger that is positioned over that fret. So to do that, you don't need to slide very far, just a couple of frets would be good. Sliding, say, from the 3rd fret with your first finger, picking the note, sliding up the string to the 5th fret. So that's what those lines are. And then occasionally you will also see one of these squiggly lines right here, and that's a vibrato marking. We'll also use something called root targeting, where we land on or end a phrase with a root note depending on what chord we're on. In the last video we talked about what chords go into a typical blues progression, and you can go back and look at that. The chords that are in the blues progression we're going to play over are A, D, and E, basically. So we can end our phrases on A, D, or E, depending on whatever chord we happen to be on at the moment. And also, you can also do other things like quote melodies. I'm going to go ahead and quote a melody in this solo by Dizzy Gillespie, who's a jazz trumpet player, from a song called Burke's Works. So you can do all sorts of things in a solo, and just here are a few examples. So this is the easy version. Okay, so there is sort of an easier version of a solo, and I'm going to put the tabs up for that, and also the graphic that I flashed up of the scale, so you can download that and have it in front of you, and use it to help you read through it. Okay, so now we're going to do the harder version of a solo. We're going to add some things to what we were using before. We were using the pentatonic / blues scale. Now we're going to use an additional scale. It's the A major pentatonic instead of just the minor. We can play the same fingering 3 frets down, so instead of lining up our fingers this way at the 5th fret with 1 at the 5th fret, we have our first finger at the 2nd fret, 2 is at the 3rd, 3 is at the 4th, and the pinky is lined up over the 5th. And we're thinking now of the 2nd note in the fingering as the root, so this note over A, it's still the 5th fret, but instead of having 1 lined up there, we have 4 lined up over it, and if we play the fingering up, and down, you can see it's the same fingering. So we have all of the same basic, the same fingering shape, but it's in a different place, and that gives us another set of notes to change the sound of our solo. Along with that, we'll be using string bends. So we had slides before and vibrato. Now we're going to add string bending. String bending is where you take the string, holding it down, and as you play it, you push it across the fret. It's always a good idea to push the first three strings, strings 1, 2, and 3, towards the center of the neck rather than pulling them, because if you pull them, you can pull the string right off the side of the neck. And we want to be careful that we don't make a finger bend alone. We always want to have multiple fingers on the string if we can. That helps with extra strength and control, because we want to make sure the bend is in tune. When we're bending a note, we're always trying to bend to a note that is above this note. So we could bend this to the blue note, but we want to make sure that we tune it the same as it would be if we just played it. Or we can bend it a whole step up so that it's tuned with the next note in the pentatonic scale. So you can also bend off of any note, but again, you want to double up. So if I'm bending off a note that I would ordinarily play with my first finger, I'm going to want to get another finger in there. And by the same token, anything that you might have bent with your fourth finger, you might want to instead shift your third finger up. And that would be particularly true if you're bending off of the first string, this is the one that puts up the most resistance. It's the stiffest for whatever reason. So that's another element that we'll add. Okay, this is the music for the harder solo, and there are some things that I should just point out quickly. There are going to be lots of bends. Sometimes they will have a fraction that marks the bend. That is the amount that you want to pull it sharp. So the bend points up, that means you're bending up in pitch. And in this case, it's a quarter step, which is just amounts to pulling not even to the next note, but just a little bit sharp. If you see a bend that doesn't have any number or fraction over it, you should assume it's a full step or a whole step. That would be the equivalent of 2 frets. So this D right here, for instance, should sound like an E, which would be 2 frets above the 7th fret. That would be the E. You'll also see little numbers beside the regular tab number and a small note in the notes above with a little arcing line, and that is an indication of an immediate hammer-on. So on the count that this note would fall, you do a hammer-on from the G to the A, or from the 5th fret to the 7th fret. And then there are also repeat bends in which we don't pick the next note again, but we just let the bend out and then repeat. And so there's a fair amount of that kind of thing. Plus pull-offs and hammer-ons. Here's a case of a pull-off going from 7 to 5 and then hammering back to 7. All of that would not be picked, and the pull-offs are marked with these arcing lines. And I think that probably covers everything except for the what we call double stops, which are really just 2-note chords. If you see them with the same number on 2 adjacent strings, you can just lay your first finger and your third finger flat and do a bar. If it's something like this, where you have separate frets, of course you won't be able to use a bar, and sometimes there's bending that's occurring on one note. So the 7th fret of the 3rd string is the note being bent here, and the 8th fret just sits there and sustains through it while you're doing the bend. This page shows all the scales that will be used in the harder solo. So of course we will be using the minor pentatonic in the 5th position, with this note as the A, and those notes are shown to the right. but we will also be adding notes. So we had the blues scale from before. So now what we're going to do is add even some more notes in, and they are shown in these different colors. The two notes are the second and sixth scale degrees, and when they are added, it turns the scale into what's called an A Dorian scale, plus these blue note passing tones, which are still in there and available for use. And then, of course, the other scale that will be used alternately to this and just the minor pentatonic or blues is the A major pentatonic form. It's exactly the same fingering, but the root note is, as I said in the other clip, the under the fourth finger. So this would now be the fifth fret. This would be fourth, third, and second. And this forms the same fingering, allows us to play in this second position all of the notes in an A major pentatonic scale. So again, there are the fingerings that you want to use, and now the root is under the fourth finger. We will also add at the end of the blues progression something called a turnaround lick. A turnaround lick sort of leaves the scale a little bit. This is more of a sort of a preconceived idea. It's sort of the same thing as in the last solo we did a little quote. This time we're going to do some different turnaround licks. So a turnaround lick can go from like the third chromatically down. Chromatic means every note, every fret from one point to the next. So I could do as a turnaround lick or variations on that. I can also walk up to from the root of the key, the A, up to the fifth of the key, which is E. So I could go, and there are lots of ways to do this. You can voice them like that. You can do that kind of thing. So I'll probably plug in a few of those as well, along with the root targeting and some of the other things that we talked about in the last one. Well, I'd like to congratulate anyone who's managed to make it up to this point in the video. I hope that you will find the scales that I've described in the video useful. The whole point really is about being creative and improvising, so the solos are really just meant as a launching point. If you want to download the music or the diagrams, as I've mentioned before, I'm going to have them available at my website via a link, which will be on the same page as the videos, and we'll see if I can put a link in this YouTube page. So if you want to click over there, you can get them. In any case, try these out. You can use the first lesson as a backing track, and the whole point is just to be creative and have fun and just express yourself. So I hope that that you will do that.